Welcome back to this program on the analysis of the NEET questions, the last NEET examinations starting from 2017 till last year, 2023. We have covered all the chapters of the first year in the previous session, and now we will just analyze the topics for the second year. And as such, the topics have been divided into 11 topics: solutions, chemical kinetics, redox reactions and electrochemistry, haloalkanes and haloarenes, alcohols, phenols and ethers, D and F block elements, coordination compounds, aldehydes, ketones and carboxylic acids, nitrogen compounds, biomolecules, and P block elements. If you make the analysis on a chapter-wise count as given in the bar diagram in this slide, on chapter 1, there is solutions, 11 questions were asked in all these 7 years. On chapter 2, chemical kinetics, 14 questions. And for redox reactions and electrochemistry, as many as 19 questions were asked. That means an average 2.7 questions. And on the chapter haloalkanes and haloarenes, 6 questions. Alcohols, phenols and ethers, as many as 14 questions. And remember, on D and F block elements, as many as 16 questions in the previous question papers. On coordination compounds, 14 questions. Aldehydes, ketones and carboxylic acids. Of course, it's a very wide chapter, and as many as 19 questions. And on nitrogen compounds, as many as 12 questions. And biomolecules, 11 questions. And P block, as many as 30 questions. And there the number is quite large. Why? Because the P block includes the elements from group 13 to group 18, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and the inert gases. So all these elements are included in the P block section, and that's why the number of questions there, it is 30. And you also know that some of the aspects in the P block elements have been deleted for this year, and we will make appropriate mention of the deleted topics, and more weightage may be given for the topics in the syllabus. Okay? So now coming to the first chapter, that is solutions. In all years, there have been questions asked on this. In 2019, it was molality KF dependence, asked as a conceptual based question, and also a question on among the following terms which are dependent on temperature. Temperature dependent, molarity, normality, volume percentage. Those concentration terms which contain volume will be temperature dependent because the volume changes on temperature. Others are temperature independent. You know that. So there was a question on that. In 2018, there was a question relating to the pH of solution of acid and base. Of course, that is a question from ionic equilibrium, so that need not be discussed here. Anyway, there was a question on the pH of solution of acid and base. In 2019, there was a question on ideal solution and the thermodynamics of ideal solution. Delta H equal to 0, delta V equal to 0, delta S greater than 0, okay, and delta G less than 0 are the thermodynamic parameters for an ideal solution. You can study the corresponding parameters for solutions with a positive deviation and solutions with a negative deviation, and these things are often asked for examination. And there was also a question on a maximum boiling azeotrope. And a maximum boiling isotrope is there in the case of negative deviation. When it is negative deviation from Raoult's law, the vapor pressure lowering. So less vapor pressure, which means more boiling point. Okay. So maximum boiling azeotrope, such questions were asked in 2019. In 2020, there was the freezing point depression calculation, a numerical problem of a non-electrolyte solute. Electrolyte type of solute may also be asked, in which you must know the degree of dissociation or the Van der Waals factor in such calculations. Okay. And there was another question on a statement, a theme-based question or a theoretical question on positive deviation of Raoult's law, and an example for that. So these are important: ideal solution, positive deviation, negative deviation, examples, graphical representations. Everything is very important from the exam point of view. 2021 was a question on osmotic pressure, order of osmotic pressures of different solutions. So you will be given solutions of electrolytes and non-electrolytes, and from that you will be able to select the solution for which osmotic pressure is the highest. Okay, it's a colligative property. So naturally, when the number of moles or the number of molecules are more, obviously the osmotic pressure will also be higher. Okay. And then in 2022, there was a question based on molality calculation. Of course, molality, molarity, mole fraction, normality, all these things are important. The corresponding calculations are important from the exam point of view. And in 2023, last year, there was a question on Henry's law. It was a statement type question on Henry's law last year. And in this chapter, you also refer in detail the Van der Waals factor and what are isotonic solutions, solutions having the same osmotic pressure, the same temperature, isotonic solutions, and comparison of the given solutions, and actually select from the which are the isotonic, or you may get a question like this: which of the following represents an isotonic pair? Such type of questions may be asked. And you may also get a thermodynamic question on thermodynamic relation for KF and KB. KB equals RT B square by 1000 delta HV, and KF equals RTF square by 1000 delta HEF. So these thermodynamic relations are important. Sometimes you may get question on that. And also study the thermodynamic relations for positive and negative deviations, I already said. And there is also the topic reverse osmosis in this particular chapter. So please understand what is reverse osmosis, and also try to understand the application of reverse osmosis in water purification, for example. Then there is a chapter chemical kinetics, and in almost all examinations, previous NEET examinations, questions were asked from this chapter, chemical kinetics. In 2017, there were two questions, one numerical and one conceptual based questions. It was about stepwise reaction and the overall order of a reaction. That was one question. And the second question was a numerical calculation based on the first order rate equation. It's very fundamental things. In 2018, the question was about the difference between first order and second order. That was one question. And another question was about the half-life of zero-order reactions, and to what extent the half-life will depend on the initial concentration. Now that is also a standard question. In 2019, there was a question relating to rate constant and percentage conversion calculation, numerical question. And there was another question relating to expressions in terms of different concentration, expressing rate in terms of different concentration terms. For example, if it is a plus B giving C reaction, you can express the rate in terms of concentration of A, you can express the rate in terms of concentration of B, you can express the rate in terms of concentration of C, and how are these different expressions for the rates related? That is a very fundamental question. So that was also asked one time. 2020, the question was about the rate constant. It's not rate of constant, it is rate constant of first order reaction and the time for conversion. It's a time for 90% conversion or time for 70% conversion, etc. Time for 50% conversion, as you know, is the half-life. Time for 70% conversion is T3/4. And for a first order reaction, you also know that the time for 99.9% conversion is 10 times the half-life. These are things which you study well, and problem or a question based on this may be obtained in your coming examination also. And then was the concept of collision frequency of reactions and to what extent the collision frequency and concentration of reactants are linked to one another. There was a question there, a theme-based question or a theory-based question. And in 2021, there was a question on the potential energy profile of a reaction. There was another question on the plot of Arrhenius equation. And in 2022, there were questions relating to the graphical representation of first order reaction. And the question was, whatever plotted on x-axis and y-axis. And there was another statement type question based on this. And there was question based on the calculation of rate constant of first order reaction, numerical question on that. And last year, 2023, the question was, there were two questions. One, a statement type question relating to zero activation energy for a reaction. That was given as one statement. And you know that for a reaction, there is no question of any zero activation energy. Remember that whatever may be the reaction, there is always an activation energy requirement in a reaction. So you cannot have a reaction of zero activation energy. The rate equation and concentration change. There was another problem related, a theme-based question relating to rate equation and concentration change. And there was also example of heterogeneous catalysis. And in this chapter, you may also refer collision theory in a bit more detail, understand the concept of the threshold energy, okay, activation energy, the relationship between these two, those things, and also study about the probability factor, okay, in the collision theory equation. What is the significance of that? The correct orientation of molecules as given by the probability factor. And then regarding the methods to determine the order of reactions, one is the integration method, second is the graphical method, and the third is the half-life method, and the fourth is the initial rate method. So remember the initial rate method also. You may get some numerical problem on that, and calculation of activation energy using the integrated form of Arrhenius equation, log K2 by K1 is equal to etc. So that is the Arrhenius equation, integrated form. K equals A e to the power of minus EA by RT is the exponential equation. From that you can get a logarithmic equation where you have data relating to two rate constants at two different temperatures. And very often questions of that type may be asked. For example, the activation, the rate constant of reaction increases 3 times when the temperature is increased from 30 degree to 40 degree. What is the activation energy of the reaction? Such questions may be asked relating to calculation of activation energy. So you may refer those things also. Coming to the third chapter, that is redox reaction and electrochemistry. In all the previous question papers, right from 2017 to 2023, questions were asked. And in 2017, there was a question about the ionic mobility order of alkali metal ions. And there was a numerical question based on the Nernst equation. That's very important. In 2018, there was a question relating to the redox potentials. And for the point of view of the redox potentials, you can explain a disproportionation reaction and the balancing or redox reaction between the very standard example and the reaction between oxalate and permanganate. How to balance the redox reaction? That was our first question. 2019, it was a relationship between E0 cell and equilibrium constant. Okay, E0 cell and equilibrium constant. You have the two relations. Delta G0 is equal to minus n of E0 cell. Delta G0, isn't it? Delta G0 is equal to minus n of E0 cell, and delta G0 is minus 2.303 RT log Kc. Those two relations are there. So once you know Kc, you can calculate delta G0, and from delta G0 you can calculate E0 cell. So connecting these two equations, numerical problems of various types may be asked. So one such question was there in 2019. 2020, there was a question on the change in oxidation number in a reaction. There was a numerical calculation based on Faraday's law of electrolysis, and there was also the prediction of products of the electrolysis of dilute sulfuric acid. In your syllabus, you study the electrolysis of molten sodium chloride aqueous solution, electrolysis of copper sulfate, electrolysis of dilute sulfuric acid using inert electrodes. All these things you study, electrolysis of concentrated sulfuric acid and prediction of the products of these electrolysis. That is there in the NCERT syllabus. It is there in your book. So study that. Perhaps you may get a question on that. 2021, there was a problem based on Colruyt's law of independent mobilities of ions. That's a question which is very often asked. And there is also a question of the calculation of the degree of dissociation or degree of ionization, alpha equal to lambda m divided by lambda m0 for a weak electrolyte. For the ionization of a weak electrolyte, you can write alpha, degree of dissociation, is equal to lambda m by lambda m0. So you can calculate the lambda m0 using the Colruyt's law of independent mobilities of ions, and the lambda m is given, you can calculate alpha. And once you know alpha, you can also calculate the ionization constant for the acid, K equal to C alpha square by 1 minus alpha for an electrolyte which is univalent acid or univalent base like HCN or acetic acid or ammonium hydroxide. You can calculate the ionization constant of the acid or base using these calculations. Okay, so such questions may be asked. A question of that type was asked in 2021. In 2022, redox potential of permanganate reaction in acid medium and the reduction of oxygen in acid medium. And the question was, can permanganate liberate O2 from water in presence of acid? That was a good question, a question where you have to think a little bit. Such questions where you will have to apply reasoning, you have to think a bit, may also be asked apart from the routine standard questions familiar to you. So you have to apply the principles to correctly solve the question and get the answer. Okay, and then there was a question on the standard redox potentials of M plus given predictions about the feasibility of reactions. Given potential values, prediction of the feasibility of reaction by calculating the EMF and see whether the value is negative or positive. You will be able to predict whether it is a spontaneous process or not. Okay, and problem based on Nernst equation and oxidation number change in a reaction. All those questions, as many as 4 questions, were asked in 2022. In 2023, it was again the calculation of cell constant and the relationship between delta G and E0 cell. So that thing is very often asked as a question. So remember that delta G0 E0 cell relationship and the delta G0 equilibrium constant relationship, and connect these two to solve problems of various types. Okay, coming to 2023 calculation of cell constant, I told you the relationship between delta G0 and E0 cell, and there was also a question on balancing of reactions. In fact, there was one numerical question and there was one theory based question, and there was a statement type question. Okay, these days the statement type questions are actually trending. In the last year 2023 question paper, there were many statement type questions, and some statement type questions will just be the statements, and you will be asked to predict whether the statement 1 is correct, whether the 2 is correct, and so on, whether 1 is false, 2 is false. There is another type of statement question which is assertion reason type questions. There will be given a statement as assertion and another statement as reason, and whether the statement 2 is the reason for the statement 1, and also whether it gives the right explanation for the statement 1, or whether it doesn't give the right explanation for the statement 1. So like that, assertion reason questions are also asked these days. So remember that. So always be very cautious while answering those questions, because there may be only just one word difference in the statement. So for example, last year there was the question on nucleoside and nucleotide, actually in molecules and phosphodiester linkage, the linking of that. There was a question on that, and the only difference was in the name of the phosphorus acid. Actually, in the statement they were giving phosphorus acid, but actually it must be phosphoric acid. So that was the only thing which is mistake in the statement. So you have to be very careful in reading the statement and locating in the statement the defect or the things which are erroneous. Okay, that's very important. While answering the questions of the statement type, assertion reason type, you give extra attention to give the correct option for the question. Okay, and you may also refer in this chapter primary and secondary cells. For example, lead storage cell, the reaction during the charging, the reaction during the discharging, and so on, and the voltage output of the storage cell. Okay, and also about other cells, particularly the fuel cell, hydrogen oxygen fuel cell. Okay, so those things are also important in this chapter, so try to study that. Okay, revise that. You already studied, so what is left is revision with a little more concentration. Okay, now coming to haloalkanes and haloarenes, this chapter in organic chemistry. In 2017, there was a question on aromatic nucleophilic substitution, and was another question which is kyne substitution, which is not usually that much discussed in connection with the syllabus. But however, this particular case of kyne substitution, C-I-N-E, kyne substitution, and the typical example is the reaction of this compound, say a chlorotoluene, and reaction with liquid ammonia and sodamide, this reaction. Now this reaction actually follows a Benzene mechanism, and HCl is removed, and you have a triple bond here. Okay, that is a benzene molecule, and when the NH2 minus attacks the benzene molecule, it may be either here or it may be here. So the result is orthotoluidine and metatoluidine. So as far as the metatoluidine is concerned, in this substitution reaction, what has happened? The nucleophile has moved to the meta position rather than getting attached to the ortho position. So if this sort of a movement takes place from the expected position to some other position, if the nucleophile moves, then the substitution is known as kyne substitution. So the formation of the metatoluidine, the NH2 group at the meta position with respect to the CH3 group, that's a case of kyne substitution. Okay, and 2020, there was a question on the beta elimination or 1,2 elimination, a standard question, and there you have the Say-Stuff rule, under what conditions the Say-Stuff rule is valid, and There is another elimination, what you call the Hoffman elimination, and what are the conditions under which the Hoffman elimination dominates. So these things you study relating to elimination reactions. Okay, 2021, there was a question on, again, dehydrohalogenation and prediction of the product and the rule relating to that. Okay, and then there was another question on the comparison of the bond energy of the CX bond in alkyl halides, CF, CCl, CBr, CI. What is the order of the bond lengths and order of the bond energy? Question 2022, the question in 2022 was the synthesis of chlorobenzene, the sequence of reactions. So for example, starting from aniline, you have diazotization followed by Sandemeyer reaction. So such sequence of reactions in the preparation of a particular compound may be asked as question. And there was also a question on the stereochemistry that's very important of SN1 reaction and SN2 reaction, and something about chirality. For SN1 reaction, you know, it is carbocation mechanism, and there is equal probability of the formation of plus and minus forms, and what you get is a racemic product. The stereochemistry is usually defined as racemization, whereas in the case of SN2 reaction, it is attack of the nucleophile from the rear side to that of the leaving nucleophile, and the transition state is there. And when the nucleophile is left out from the molecule, you are getting a configuration in which the attacking reagent has occupied a position opposite to that of the leaving group. That means there is an inversion in configuration. This is what you call Warden inversion. So such things you have studied. It's very important. Questions may be asked on that. It was asked there in 2022. And in 2023, in the last year, it was a question highlighting the examples of aryl halides. Question was pretty simple. Vinylic halides, allylic halides, and benzylic halides. The question was that. And remember, in this chapter, all the important things have been already cited. But apart from that, you study a little bit detail about SN1 and SN2 reactions, the order of nucleophilicity of the nucleophiles, the order of the basic character of the nucleophiles, and the solvent effect in SN1 and SN2 reactions, whether it is a polar protic solvent, whether it's a polar protic solvent, whether it's a non-polar solvent. So the effect of the solvent in directing the product in a SN1, SN2 reaction. So those things also you study, and study in detail about optical isomerism. Okay, in molecules containing more than one carbon atom, how many optical isomers are there? So for example, in two molecule containing two dissimilar asymmetric carbon atoms, you have as many as 4 optical isomers, 2 dextro and 2 levo. That means 2 dextro-levo pairs or 2 pair of enantiomers. But if it is a molecule containing 2 similar dissymmetric carbon atoms, in that case, the number of optical isomers is only 2, 1 dextro and 1 levo, and the third isomer is there, that is the meso isomer, and the meso isomer is optically inactive because it has a plane of symmetry. All these details you try to study, and also try to follow how to designate a stereoisomer by giving the notation R or S. Optical isomer by giving the RS notation. So how to write down the RS configuration? What is a guideline for writing the R and S configuration? You studied that also. Coming to the 5th chapter, that is alcohols, phenols and ethers, a pretty long chapter. In all the examinations you have questions, and this time remember, since some topics have already been deleted, particularly from inorganic chemistry, this block has been deleted, hydrogen has been deleted, hydrogen peroxide has been deleted, environmental chemistry has been deleted, chemistry in daily life has been, and polymers have been deleted. Remember, there is always a chance of getting more questions from organic chemistry. Organic chemistry will have I think more importance. The number of questions from organic chemistry may be more this time than it was in previous years. So this is a long chapter, alcohols, phenols and ethers. And in 2017, there was a question on the cleavage of ethers by HI. Remember, that is something which has been repeated many times. Okay, the cleavage of ethers by HI, that's very important. And also the acidic nature of nitrophenols. The 2,4,6-nitrophenol is more acidic than 2,4-dinitrophenol, more acidic than para-nitrophenol, more acidic than orthonitrophenol, more acidic than metanitrophenol, more acidic than phenol. Those things are important, and there was question on that in 2017. In 2018, there was iodophone test. For example, which of the following compounds will give iodophone test and so on. Maybe the type of questions asked. And there was also a question on the reaction alcohol with sodium, alcohol with the PCl5, and how to get an ether between these products. The sodium alkoxide and alkyl halide will give an ether. In 2019, there was a question on the compounds containing lone pair on oxygen and their ability to protonate. For example, an alcohol or phenol. Such compounds were given, and the question was there, which of them will protonate easily? That was a question asked. And another question was a very standard question. The reaction of cumene, it's not cumene, it is cumene, C-U-M-E-N-E, cumene, and reaction with, that is isopropyl benzene, reaction with oxygen giving the hydroperoxide, which on cleavage gives phenol and acetone. A very important method for the preparation of phenol and acetone is a valuable byproduct in this reaction, and this has been asked so many times in the question paper, so a very important question. 2020, Grignard synthesis of alcohol. Of course, you know, a Grignard reagent on reaction with the formaldehyde gives a primary alcohol, with other aldehydes give secondary alcohol, with the ketones give the tertiary alcohols, with esters give tertiary alcohol, but in that 2 molecules of the Grignard reagent are added, and the Grignard reagent also reacts with an epoxide, giving a primary alcohol containing 2 carbon atoms more, because epoxide contains CH2O, CH2, that means 2 more carbon atoms. So you are getting a primary alcohol containing 2 carbon atoms more than that of the alkyl part of the Grignard reagent. Okay, so such questions were asked in 2020. That is Grignard synthesis of alcohols. That's important. And again, the question was there on the cleavage of ether by HI. So that's a question which is asked many times. Remember that. So there is every probability of getting such a question this time also or in future also. Okay. And 2021, it was again the reaction of a ketone with the Grignard reagent. Already said. In 2022, it was the reaction of nitrophenol. Is it more acidic than phenol or less acidic? If so, which nitrophenol? I already said the para-nitrophenol is more acidic than the orthonitrophenol, which is more acidic than the metanitrophenol. Okay, which is acidic, more acidic than phenol. So that question was there, and there was also the question on Lucas reagent, Lucas test, which, as you know, is a test to differentiate among primary, secondary and tertiary alcohols. You know the chemistry of that, it's pretty simple. So remember, it is asked as a question, an important question. Okay. In 2023, last year, the reaction was about an alcohol with a hydrogen bromide. And when it's a reaction alcohol with a hydrogen bromide, routine reaction, replacement reaction, remember that OH is replaced by bromine. But the reaction proceeds via protonation of the OH, removal of water, forming a carbocation. So there is a chance that the carbocation undergoes rearrangement. So remember that when the question was asked on that. And then there was a question on the cleavage of unsymmetric aromatic ether with HI. So remember, this particular question was asked in 2017, it was asked in 2020, it was asked in 2023 also. So very important, cleavage of ethers by hydroiodic acid. You study as many examples as possible, you are likely to get a question on that. And in this chapter, you may also refer oxidation of alcohol, so by pyridinium chlorochromate, the importance, oxidation of a primary alcohol to aldehyde or a secondary alcohol to ketone, and no further oxidation when you use PCC, that's important. And then also the catalytic dehydrogenation reaction of primary, secondary, and tertiary alcohols, and also the Grignard synthesis of alcohols, which I already said is important. Now coming to the D and F block elements, remember it's a very important chapter and so many questions were asked in the previous years. 2017, there was a reaction between sulfur dioxide and acid dichromate, one question. And there was also the reaction between mercuric ions and potassium iodide to form K2HgI4, a complex. And this complex is important in connection with test for ammonium ions, that is the complex which is Nessler's reagent. The alkaline solution of K2HgI4 is what you call the Nessler's reagent. So practical chemistry may also be linked to this particular compound. And there was also a question on the greater range of oxidation states of actinoids. So 3 questions were there in 2017. In 2018, the DD transition in complex ions and the paramagnetism of oxo ions of transition metals, like oxo ions, that means MnO4 minus, oxo ion, okay, or Cr2O7 2 minus. These are actually oxo ions of transition metals, okay, and calculation of magnetic moments of metal ions. So you must be able to spell out the electronic configuration of the metal ion and find out the number of unpaired electrons, and on the basis of that you calculate the magnetic moment using the formula square root of n into n plus 2. Okay. Then in 2019 there was the question on bonding and magnetic properties of manganate and permanganate. That's very important. The 2 compounds now in the D and F block series is permanganate and dichromate. So conversion of manganate to permanganate. So the structure and the bonding mechanisms, all those things are very important. And also for chromate, dichromate conversion. And the structure of chromate, structure of dichromate, and what are the conditions under which chromate is converted to dichromate and dichromate is converted to chromate. These things are very important. Okay. And there was also a question on electronic configuration of a complex by knowing the distribution of electrons in the T2G and EG orbitals. Okay. 2020, there was a question on spin-only magnetic moment of a D element ion, already said. Already such questions were asked. Oxidation states of transition metals, and some question on interstitial compounds and catalytic activity of transition metals. The characteristic features of transition metals, that is very important. Apart from the electronic configuration, what are the other characteristic properties of transition metals? You study that, you are likely to get question on that. Formation of copper ammonium complex, that is the reaction between copper sulfate and ammonium hydroxide, forming CuOH 4 times, CuNH3 4 times, CuNH3 4 times. This is a complex CuNH3 4 times OH twice. This is what you call the copper ammonium complex, a deep blue complex. So question was there on that aspect. In 2021, there were statement type question about the comparison of the properties of lanthanides and actinides. And there was also a question on metal displacement reaction and very standard question relating to the comparison of the atomic and ionic radii of zirconium and hafnium. And the reason for the similarity, you come across the lanthanide contraction and phenomena like that, it explains such things, you know. And coming to 2022, there was no question. In 2023, there was a question relating to the stability of Cu plus and Cu2 plus. That was one question. And there was another question on transition metal oxides and their properties. So for example, the basic property or the acidic property or the oxidizing property and all that of transition metal oxides. There was a question on that. Okay. And then is coordination compounds. Again, a very important chapter in inorganic chemistry. But a lot of questions were asked in the previous years. 2017, It was relating to the absorption of wavelength by a complex ion in the visible region. Okay, and then there was question on hybridization in shape of a complex, and there was a question on the precipitation of chloride ions in a complex with a silver nitrate. The chloride ion inside the coordination sphere will not be precipitated. The chloride ion outside the coordination sphere will be precipitated. So on the basis of that, there was there was a question, and also there was question relating to sigma bonded organometallic compounds. When you study organometallic compounds, you have sigma bonded, you have pi bonded, and there are organometallic compounds in which there is both a sigma bond, there are both a sigma bond and pi bond. So for example, metal carbonyls. And the bonding in these compounds, you study that, you are likely to get a question on that. 2018, there was question on isomerism shown by complexes. It's very important, both geometrical isomerism and optical isomerism of complexes. And there was question on the geometry and magnetic behavior of nickel tetracarbonyl, a standard question which every one of you may be studying and knowing, and shape of iron pentacarbonyl, FeCO 5 times. So the bonding in FeCO 5 times and the geometry of FeCO 5 times. Then 2020, there was a question on the order of field strengths of ligands. In our textbook, NCERT textbook, there is a big order where a large number of ligands are indicated, and their strength, the strength of the ligands, and that's often called as a spectrochemical series. So that is given. So study that, and there was a question based on that. And in 2021, there was a question based on the EDTA ligand, ethylene diamine tetraacetic acid ligand, where you have a coordination number of six coordinated ligand, okay, hexadentate ligand it is. And there was also a question on the magnetic moment complex match type question. Complexes will be given in one column and the magnetic moments were given in another column. So match the two. That's a routine type of question. Similarly, complexes on one column and structure on the other column. I mean the shape of the molecule on the other column. Or it may be complexes in one column and the hybridization in another column match. So such match type questions are always likely to come in question papers. Okay, then 2022 there was a question on nomenclature and the question on order of energy absorbed by different complexes. And 2023 last year the question was about homoleptic complex. There are complexes given and you are asked to identify which is a homoleptic complex. Okay, and then there was a question on the stability of complexes, stability complex. You may also refer geometrical and optical isomerism in complexes in some detail, okay, and you also study about Wilkinson catalyst, importance of that, and also study about anti-cancer drug, the complex of platinum which is used as anti-cancer drug, and also study about the theories of bonding in complexes and particularly the overlapping of the orbitals in metal carbonyls. How are the sigma bonds and the pi bonds formed between the metal and carbon monoxide in metal carbonyls. So these things you may refer and study in detail. Okay. Coming to the next chapter, that is aldehydes, ketones and carboxylic acids. It's a pretty long chapter, you know, in organic chemistry, perhaps the longest chapter. Where a lot of details are in organic chemistry are there, which are very important from the exam point of view. And 2017, there was the aldol condensation of cyclohexanone, an example which is there in the textbook. And we studied so many examples of aldol condensation and crossed aldol condensation. So study that. And then there was a question on tolerance test and also the formation of the semicarbazone derivative between an aldehyde or ketone and semicarbazide. And there was also a question on catalytic dehydrogenation. In 2018, there was a question on Riemann-Tiemann reaction. What is the electrophile? Everybody knows that it is dichlorocarbene that is attacking electrophile in Riemann-Tiemann reaction. So very often question on Riemann-Tiemann is asked in various ways. And there was also a question on the boiling points of carboxylic acids in comparison with aldehydes and ketones. Why the boiling points of acids are higher than those of aldehydes and ketones of comparable molecular mass. So that was there as a question. And 2020, it was preparation of benzaldehyde from toluene. You study the various methods by means of which benzaldehyde could be synthesized starting from toluene. And there was also the question on crossed aldol condensation. In 2021, there was a question on decarboxylation. And there was also a question of a multifunctional compound and what happens in a sodium borohydride reduction of this compound. So for example, if a compound contains a double bond and aldehyde group, what will happen during a sodium borohydride reduction? It is only the aldehyde group which is reduced, but the double bond is not reduced, it is intact. So this type of question may be asked. A compound containing say 2 or 3 functional groups and a particular reagent will be given, and during reaction with that reagent, which all functional groups are actually reduced? Which functional group is not reduced? So on the basis of that, a question may be there. There was also a question on Etart's reaction, and you were asked to write the intermediate in Etart's reaction. When toluene reacts with that chromyl chloride, what is the intermediate formed in the Etart's reaction? That was asked as a question. Okay? And there is also a match type of question asked in 2021, where reactions were given on the left hand side and the products were given on the right hand side, or the name reactions were given on the left hand side and the chemical equations were given on the right hand side. Okay, so match type of questions may be, or you may even get reactions, 4 reactions are given, and which of the following reactions are successful in getting benzaldehyde? Such questions were also being asked for various other examinations. Okay, and the question in 2022, there was the question on the synthesis of carboxylic acid by using Grignard reagent. It's a very standard question. And then again, why the boiling points of aldehydes and ketones are slightly higher than that for hydrocarbons. So what is the reason for that? And reaction of carbonyl compound, again, product, match in column 1. Carbonyl compounds are given in column 2, products were given. How to match? That was the type of question asked. And there was a question on crossed aldol condensation. So between acetaldehyde and propionaldehyde, or between acetophenone and acetone, or between acetophenone and acetaldehyde, okay, or between cyclohexanone and say an aliphatic aldehyde like CH3, CH2, CHO, propanol. Such questions you must try to work out as many examples of aldol condensation possible and make sure that whatever may be the question, you will be able to answer the question. Okay? And 2023, there were questions on Clemenson's reduction. There were 4 questions asked. One numerical question was there. I will come to that. Clemenson's reduction, addition of hydrogen cyanide to ketone followed by hydrolysis, okay, to get a hydroxy acid. Numerical problem based on decarboxylation reaction. So for example, a particular mass of the acid will be given, and during decarboxylation, what is the mass of the hydrocarbon formed, or what is the volume of the hydrocarbon formed at STP? So that sort of question may be asked. It's pretty simple. If it is RCOOH, on decarboxylation we will get RH, 1 molecule of hydrocarbon. That means 1 mole of acid will give 1 mole of hydrocarbon, and 1 mole of hydrocarbon means 22.4 liters at STP. So if you are asked about the mass of the hydrocarbon, or number of moles of the hydrocarbon, or the volume of the hydrocarbon at STP, it's very simple to answer the question. So it is there is a trend of asking numerical questions based on organic chemistry, equations in organic chemistry, reactions in organic chemistry. But don't worry, it is simply stoichiometric calculation, which you have already seen in connection with the chapter 1 in first year. Similar ideas can be applied to solve these equations in organic chemistry, or these numerical questions in organic chemistry. Okay, and then there was a question on tolerance reagent. containing aldehyde group and keto group. When the tolerance reagent reacts, it is the aldehyde group alone which is actually oxidized by the tolerance reagent. The keto group doesn't react. That's a known thing. It's easy. And there was question relating to reduction by lithium aluminum hydride, okay, followed by certain other reactions. So that's many as 5 questions. Last year in 2023 question paper, there were 5 questions from this chapter. And this year also, you are most likely to get 5 or even more than 5 questions, because this chapter is pretty long chapter. And I also told you that this time the weightage for organic chemistry questions will definitely be more, because many topics have been deleted from our syllabus. Okay. So coming to nitrogen compounds, that is the 9th chapter. Questions were there in all the question papers, previous question papers. In 2017, it was the very familiar, famous Hoffman's hyperbromide reaction or degradation reaction. You know that was asked. And there was also a question on the variation, the basic strength of aniline by substitution of other groups on aniline ring. If you substitute a electron withdrawing group, the electron density on the nitrogen decreases and the basic strength decreases. If you substitute an electron donating group, obviously the electron density on the nitrogen will increase and the basic nature will increase. So based on that, there was a question, 2017. And in 2018, there was a question on the nitration of aniline to metanitroaniline. Why nitration of aniline gives metanitroaniline? In spite of the fact that amino group is an orthopara directing group, you are getting sufficient amount of metanitroaniline. Why? Because aniline, in the presence of the nitrate mixture, strongly acidic medium, the amino group is getting protonated, and what is formed is an anilinium ion, and the NH3 plus is actually a meta-directing group. It's a deactivating meta-directing group, and that's why you are getting a good lot of metanitroaniline in addition to the expected ortho para products. But ortho is obtained only in extremely small yield, and meta is getting as good as something like 47 to 49%. Remember that. So in 2019, there was a question based on the order of basic property of methyl substituted amines, and there was also a question on the thialamide formation, the application of thialamide in Gabriel synthesis for preparing pure primary amines, you know, and why aryl halides are not actually used in Gabriel's thialamide synthesis. That also you know, because that synthesis is basically an SN reaction, and aryl halides, as you know, are very unreactive towards SN reactions under ordinary conditions. So these things you must know. And then in carbylamine test, a very standard question, a test for primary amine with the chloroform and alcoholic, you get a false smelling compound, that is carbylamine, which is nothing but isocyanide. Okay, you must know the structure of isocyanide. Okay, and then in 2021, there was a Hinsberg test for amines, and there was a question on diazonium chloride. And in 2022, there was a reaction of aliphatic and aromatic amines with nitrous acid. What is the difference in aliphatic amines? On reaction with the nitrous acid, you get an unstable diazonium salt, which spontaneously decomposes to give the carbocation, which is attacked by the water molecule to give an alcohol as a product. Whereas in aromatic, you have diazotization to give fairly stable diazonium salts in solution. Okay, and reduction of an aromatic cyano compound by lithium aluminum hydride followed by diazotization. Okay, that was the question. And then again diazonium chloride. Last year there was a question on diazonium chloride and Sandemeyer's reaction, very famous. And also there was a question relating to reactions giving primary amine as a product. And in this chapter you also refer synthetic applications of diazonium chloride. There are so many reactions of diazonium chloride, including the azodie formation. Okay, that's very important. And you refer the Gabriel's thialamide synthesis of pure primary amines. I already said. Reduction of nitrobenzene under different conditions. You also refer that. Reduction of nitrobenzene in neutral medium, reduction of nitrobenzene in acid medium, and reduction of nitrobenzene in basic medium, and what are the products. Okay, and then the chapter 10, that is biomolecules. Of course, in all the question papers, you find question on biomolecules. 2017, it was a statement type question about enzyme catalysis, and also another question regarding the denaturation of proteins. Okay. In 2018, it was the difference between a structural based question, amylose and amylopectin. Both are glucose polymers, but what is the difference between the amylose fraction of cellulose and the amylopectin fraction of cellulose? That was the question. And in 2019, it was about a cofactor of ATP phosphate transfer. And in 2020, it was a simple question on the hydrolysis of cane sugar. And there was another question on example of basic amino acid. So you have as many as 20 amino acids. You must know what are the essential amino acids, non-essential, and what are acidic amino acids, basic amino acids, and neutral amino acids. These things you must know, because in your syllabus, in the NCERT book, a complete table relating to these is given and the structures are given. So there is every chance for questions of this type may be asked. Okay? And there was also a question about metal ions and their importance in the transmission of nerve signals. In 2021, there was a question on deficiency diseases, that is to vitamin deficiency, what is the disease? It may also be asked as a match type question, diseases, vitamins. You can have a match type question. Okay? Then 2022, there were statements about enzymes, and from that you were asked to choose incorrect statements, statement type question from enzymes. And 2023, last year, I told you, there was the question on nucleotide, and question on enzymes, then role of calcium and magnesium ions, and there was also an interesting question on the daily requirement of calcium and magnesium. So such things may be asked. So you just cannot omit anything. It's very important you have to study everything in the syllabus, because we don't know, even though we discuss these as the main questions, major questions asked so far, and these are the important questions. Remember that a question may be asked on another aspect which we normally consider not that significant from the exam point of view. That's very important. So my advice is that you please don't leave any portions, focus on all aspects, but give more focus on the questions already discussed, or the type of questions already discussed, more focus on the items already discussed. The questions already asked in the examinations, and other topics which we have listed under the head, you may also refer. Okay? And now the last section in this second year versions is the P block elements, and we find a lot of questions being asked, mainly the conceptual questions, and rarely numerical questions. There were some numerical questions also, and statement type questions, and match type questions. All sorts of questions were being asked from this section, which is very vast. And in 2017, there was a question about the sink for carbon monoxide. Of course, it is an environmental chemistry aspect, but carbon monoxide is a compound of carbon. You must know what is a sink of carbon monoxide as a pollutant. What is the sink of carbon monoxide? There were questions on interhalogen compounds, why they are more reactive than halogens, their structures, and their geometrical shape, etc. There was also a question on compounds containing SS bond. Sulfur compounds are begun, and you were asked to identify compounds containing SS bond. There was also a question on inert pair effect. 2018, there was a question on the acidic nature of oxides, comparison of S block, generalizations about halogens, a question about the ability to form complex anions of group 13 elements, and there was a question on the correct order of nitrogen compounds in the decreasing order of their oxidation states. There was a question on the nitrogen oxide, which is not a common pollutant by human activity. As many as 5 questions in 2018. In 2019, there was a question on the stability of complex anions of group 14 elements, xenon fluorides, geometry, XeF2, XeF4, XeF6, etc. Order of thermal stability of hydrides of 16 group elements, structure of the species Br3O8 tribromo octooxide. It is Br, okay. This is tribromo octooxide. I think that is only instance of this compound being asked as a question. 2019 tribromo octooxide. And not many papers. I have gone through so many question papers, but I have not seen this example elsewhere. But that was asked as a question in 2019. Product process match. Product and process, manufacturing methods and the products and how to match them. That was another type of question being asked. And the tetrahalides of group 4 and their ease of hydrolysis was asked as another question. There were as many as 5 questions in 2019. And 2020, oxo acids of sulfur containing OO link. Just to go through the structures of the oxo acids of sulfur. Try to remember that in your mind and locate those in which there is an OO linkage. Question based on carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, carbon 60, that is fullerene, and sedesum 5, that is zeolite, and some question about the oxides, their acidic, basic, neutral character. For example, a set of oxides are given, you have to classify them into acidic, basic, and neutral oxide. Which of the following oxides are neutral? Which of the following oxides are acidic? Or you may be given a set of oxides, and on the right hand side you may be given acidic, basic, neutral, and match the following. So that sort of question may be asked. Okay? And then in 2021, some properties of noble gases, order of acid strength of HX, order of acid strength pKa, okay, oxidizing nature, etc. of hydrides and oxides of halogens, and 16 group and 15 group elements, reaction, atmospheric pollution, match, etc. But the environmental chemistry chapter being deleted, I think a question on atmospheric pollution is not likely to be asked, but still something general everyone must know. So that is important. For example, if you are asked a question about greenhouse gases, you must be able to spell out carbon dioxide and methane. They are the most important greenhouse gases. These are some aspects which are something general which everyone must know, not in connection with a specific subject or a specific chapter, but something general. So sometimes a question on that may also be asked, but don't worry about it. The possibility of questions from environmental chemistry being asked is not there this time. Then in 2022, interhalogen compound ICl is more reactive than I2. This was I2. ICl is more reactive than I2. What is the reason? Comparison of boiling points of hydrides of group 16 and comparison of boiling points of hydrides of elements of different groups. Match type question, structure of diborane and nature of bonds. Actually, detailed chemistry of the P block elements are not to be studied, not expected this time in our syllabus, but still compounds like a diborane may be asked because it is an example of an electron deficient boride and containing a boron hydride and containing special type of bond, what you call a 3-center 2-electron bond. So such things also you try to keep in your mind. You may read and understand these general things also, because this topic P block elements being something general and very vast, you must be ready to answer whatever type of question being asked for the examination. Okay, and in 2023 last year there was a question on the carbon allotropes and structure, and there was a question on the stability of halides of group 13 elements. And there was also a question on the oxyacid of sulfur and the structure. Altogether, there were 3 questions. Two were match type questions, and one was a theory-based question last time. So anyway, that is the discussion of the second year chapters. Dear students, this program has been conducted just to give you a awareness about what are the important topics and what all questions were asked on these important topics in the last 7 NEET examinations. And apart from those questions already asked, or those topics on which questions have already been asked, what are the other topics which are really important and question may be asked this time or next in the future years. So just to give that sort of an awareness about the important things, the type of questions already asked and the type of questions you may get, we had organized this program, a analysis of the NEET question papers of previous years. And thank you for your listening and participation, and wish you all the best in your NEET examination. You have 1 month and a few days left. Utilize the time in the best manner possible and study in the best way possible and appear for the examination with full confidence and try your best to win the game. Okay? Success is yours. You have to win the game this time. Wish you all the very best.